Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Indigenous Insights. My name is Mitch Bolo. Welcome to the show. We got a good one in store for you today. And I'm pretty confident that this is the biggest group we've had on at once, and it's actually going to call for a little bit different format. We got kind of a rotation planned here with these questions, leaving room for discussion. Well, first, let me introduce Miss Leora Tadgerson. Leora is a member of the Bay Mills Tribe, and she is also from the Student Equity and Engagement Center at NMU, the organization providing us access to this Zoom. So Leora, welcome back to the show. You're here a long time ago.
Miigwech, Mitch, and bonjour, everybody. Happy to be here.
All right, so two things for you. First, can you tell us about the SEEC, and then tell us why this is an exciting time to be a Bay Mills tribal member?
Absolutely. So the SEEC, it's the new reimagined MERC office here at Northern Michigan University. And we're trying to offer different equity initiatives for students here at NMU. And it's been a really fun journey, especially coming from COVID and still offering those different initiatives for students, usually online. And today I'm really excited to be here just to be able to speak with and be introduced to the all-female-led Executive Council for Bay Mills from Ganosha-Kaneng. So miigwech everybody for being here. This is a really wonderful thing.
Okay, and that brings us to the others here. Also joining us on the show, we have members from the Bay Mills Community Tribal Council. And again, they are the first all-woman executive council at Bay Mills. Did I say that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, so the way we'll do this, like I mentioned before, I'll ask a question, we'll go through our rotation. So the first one is, can you just tell us a little bit about who you are, and then give us a rundown about your history on politics and government and the like?
So I'll hop right in. My name is Rachel Burtt. I am the councilperson for the Bay Mills Executive Council. I also have another role with BMIC as the tribal manager. In regards to my history with politics and government, this is the first elected position that I've ever sought, and obviously the first that I've ever been successful in getting. So that's kind of my history. Educationally, I have a MPA from NMU, so I've learned a lot about politics and government, both with my graduate studies and my undergrad with legal studies.
Hi, I'm Brenda Bjork. I am the vice chair for the Executive Council. I'm also the hospitality director at Bay Mills Resort and Casino and the general manager for the business holdings. I have worked for the tribe for a long time, close to 30 years now. I started out as an 18-year-old kid and immediately got drawn to council meetings and how they worked, and I attended a great deal of those over the years. So it always fascinated me to be part of the big decision making for the tribe and just trying to make those decisions wisely for everyone. So that's why I ran.
And I'm Gail Glezen. I am the treasurer on the Executive Council, and I'm also the director of the Bay Mills Housing Authority out here. I have a little bit of history and politics in the, the mid 80s, somewhere in there. I was the township clerk for Sugar Island, ran twice for 8 years, was elected 4 years each, was elected for 8 years in that. And that is when I was living down on Sugar Island. And part of that time I was on the Bay Mills Reservation on Sugar Island. We have a parcel of land down there. So that's about the extent of my political career or ambitions. I've always been interested and paid attention to what was going on with the council. So just kind of a natural in.
And hello, my name is Whitney Gravel. I am the newly elected tribal chairwoman of the Bay Mills Executive Council. My history with politics and government, actually, when I reflect on it, I'm involved more than I thought. And I think that's mostly due to my educational background. I have a Juris Doctorate with a certificate in Indigenous law. And then my undergrad, I also studied political science and international studies. But previously, before running in the most recent election, I did serve as tribal attorney for Bay Mills Indian community. And then before that, I was elected as chief judge of the Bay Mills Tribal Court. So all of my background as it relates to tribal government or state and federal government really comes from the legal perspective, how we're working on legislation, policies and regulations, or other legal avenues that tribes, not only here at Bay Mills, but across the country are engaging in.
Very cool. Thank you very much, everybody. So this is basically the same question, but aiming to learn a little bit about who you are outside of work. Could you tell us a little bit about your upbringing, your childhood, or your family upbringing and your family now? Personal stuff.
So I was raised off reservation for a vast majority of my youth. We moved to the Traverse City area probably in about 85. I was about 5 years old. And then we returned to Bay Mills Indian Community in about 2004. I have two brothers, both who work for BMIC. My older brother, he's our engineer. My younger brother, he works within our IT department. In regards to current situation, I have two children of my own. I have a boy whose name is Quentin, and he is 11. Then I have my daughter who is Neva, and she is 6. They keep me very busy outside of this. I am actually getting married this summer, so I will have a husband come September. So that's my personal life in a nutshell.
Oh, you're muted, Brenda.
Okay, I was born and raised in Bay Mills. I've spent my entire life, except for a small pinch of it, right here, moving from one side known as the farms to the res. I have, 4 siblings, 2 brothers, 2 sisters, military for my brothers. My sister's an organic farmer. And I've been married for a really long time. And we have 3 kids. And we've raised our family here, and we've just always loved our community. So I never wanted to leave it.
And I am totally different. I grew up all over the place. My father's job had us traveling. So, I mean, when I was in 3rd grade, I went to 3 different schools in 3 different states. So it wasn't until I was in high school that we finally settled down, and we were on the western side of the UP. And I went to school, finished high school over there, graduated from community college over there. During that time, my parents came back here and moved on to Sugar Island. So eventually I followed them back here, been here ever since. I worked in the banking industry for years and years and years. And at one point, there were a lot of mergers, things going on, and the tribe had a position opened up a while back. And I remember going to interview for the job, and during the course of the interview, it was like, oh, you're Gracie's daughter. That's my mom, because she worked for the tribe. No, you're Art's daughter. That's my dad, because he worked for the tribe. Well, that's Mark's sister, because he worked for the tribe. So basically, everybody other than me worked for the tribe at that time. And that was 21 years ago. And I've been working for the tribe ever since. I've have 4 children, 2 of which are, well, they're both working for the tribe right now. One is a graphic artist, the other one works for the college. And then my son is doing his internship right now in PR marketing for the tribe. And then I've got a 15-year-old daughter at home. So, and we all just love it here, so.
So for myself, I was also born and raised on the Bay Mills Indian Community Reservation. It's actually pretty cool to think back to my childhood and then examine where we're at now for the tribe and how different it's changed, how many new developments that we've been able to have. My family has always been here in Bay Mills, and they've actually always been involved a little bit in tribal politics, whether that was officially or unofficially. And it's really my community, you know, one of the reasons why I chose this position, being able to grow up with everyone. And I'm sure you guys know this as well, reservations and tribes and their communities are really close and held together. So even though I have 5 siblings, it really feels like I have so many more because we grew up together and we shared those experiences and we supported one another. It wasn't until I got much older and actually moved away for school that I realized like your auntie was someone who was blood related, because you have all these aunties who would babysit you and take care of you and watch over you. I still have people I call, you know, auntie today, and they're not really my aunt. So it's really been wonderful to grow up here and just be a part of the community. I left a little bit for college and work related issues, but despite the numerous states that I would move to go work or, you know, go away for school, there was only one place that really felt like home, which was Bay Mills, and is one of the reasons that I came back to be a part of this community and dedicate my work to helping everyone here.
All right, so take us back to the moment when each of you decided to run for council the very first time. What was that decision like for you?
So most of us here, Brenda, Gail, and I, we all were elected to these positions in November of 2019. So this, you know, kind of mulling over and deciding whether to run for council or not was pre-COVID. But when, you know, when the thought first kind of back up a bit there, mirroring on what Brenda had said, you know, attending the council meetings, that's something that I've always done, and I've been, you know, pretty passionate about, you know, being part of the GTC, which is our General Tribal Council, which is all voting age members of our community. I took that as a serious role. I think that, you know, our community in general needs to do that, and many of us do that. You know, we're a part of this, whether we're an elected position or not. You're part of the GTC, so you have a say in your community and the pathway that we're taking. So prior to being elected, I took that seriously, and I was always involved in participating with any of our meetings that were held. And, you know, I would be right there in the front row raising my hand, you know, asking the questions, really trying to get some clarity on things. So I think that this was kind of just that next step to involvement and participating with our government and the politics that take place at BMIC. So when I started thinking about it, I mean, I think it was kind of it was an easy decision, because I really liked being a part of that, and I think that I had a lot to offer to the elected position. So it kind of came naturally.
So I was actually elected in 2017. And I ran for strictly personal reasons. I am the mother of a drug addict. And for me, it felt like I was alone in that fight. So I reached out to a lot of parents that felt the same way. And yeah, I wanted to do something about not only the drug addiction in the community and the neighboring communities, but the parents that were trying to, you know, get their kids through that. It's a lonely, lonely journey. So I have been, I've actually been pretty successful and made a lot of friends in this journey. So that was my reason.
Big wedge.
Rachel made me do it. So no, I actually had 6 years ago run for the same position, treasurer. I with my financial background in that, I've always been really attuned to everything financial going on in the tribe. And I threw my name in the hat 6 years ago, and I didn't make it through the primaries. I didn't do any campaigning, didn't do anything, and I missed out on the primaries by 3 votes and realized I didn't get after my family to get out and vote. So, and then we had a really good council that was on board. But in 19, I thought, you know, I have a lot to offer, and I had opinions on things that, as far as, you know, financially, which way we should go, what we should do, and whether I won or not, I could still interject my opinions in there. So, and like I said, Rachel made me do it. So And I don't regret it. And my husband was very supportive. He's the one that said, you got to do it. You got to do it. So I did.
My decision running for council was extremely stressful, and I share that only because it was not under ordinary circumstances. So our former president, Brian Newland, was resigning from his position to take another position in the Department of Interior. He is now the acting principal deputy secretary to Indian Affairs. And once we learned of his decision, everyone was kind of wondering, you know, what do we do next? Where do we go from here? We knew that we had to have a special election. And as I took the chance to reflect upon his leadership, you know, what I've been able to learn from the current executive council, as well as the circumstances that have been occurring with COVID-19 and all of the financial and economic and even emotional stress that our tribe had been under, I wanted to help council, not just in my current role as tribal attorney, but even more as the tribal chairperson. So that's why I decided to run. But it was an extremely stressful decision, but I'm happy I did it. And I'm happy that my community, and especially these ladies, believe in me and that I could step up in that role. I needed a lot of encouragement in order to make that decision. And it's really been like that my entire life. People keep believing in me, and I feel like that allows me to rise up and achieve the things that I want.
Well, you all just gave me so much inspiration listening to those different paths. So what kind of campaigning did each of you do?
I went old school. I went door to door. I had brochures made up with kind of some of the key platforms that I wanted to pursue in this position and in this role. I talked to people, you know, I think that was a big thing, you know, having, like I had stated before, having been raised off reservation for a majority of my life, that older generation didn't really know who I was, and I really wanted to get out there and let them know, you know, who I am and what I'm about. Big thing is, you know, I had to introduce my family, you know, hey, I'm Barry and Lori's daughter, and that would always click with them because my parents were also, you know, heavily involved in a lot of planning aspects, and my mom was on council too, my grandmother as well. So just kind of, you know, this is where I come from and this is me. And so there was a lot of that going door to door and letting people know what I was all about.
Hi, so I actually participated in, at the time we held roundtables and other things for potential council members. And I work in a very public setting. So I've talked to people every day, not necessarily about politics or anything like that, but they kind of know me. Yeah, I didn't have to go door to door. If I run again, I may have to take that route.
And I didn't do a whole lot of campaigning. I had a letter posted. I had my graphic artist daughter help me throw something up on Facebook, and a letter posted with my position. I relied heavily upon my reputation in the community and the people that I worked with, and, you know, just, you know, what they know about me. I did post some signs around, but that was pretty much it. We had the college held a Meet the Candidates forum that I attended. And luckily it worked out. I just went off of, here I am, take me or leave me. So.
My experiences running my campaign was a mix of everything that these ladies have done, as well as some of the things I was not allowed to do because of COVID-19 and because it was a special election. So typically when Bay Mills Indian Community hosts an election, we have our primaries and then we have our general election. And that actually allows individuals almost 2.5 months to go out and campaign, express their platform, and reach out to the community. For our special election, we only had 30 days. And it was a very extremely tight turnaround because 7 of those days of the 30, you were allowed to submit your letters of intent to run for that position. So really, we were talking about 3 weeks that we had leading up to the election. Because of COVID, there were no more regularly scheduled roundtables. So I did a mix of going door to door, reaching out through people on social media, and then also hosting Facebook live Q&As with our membership in order to address them with our platform. Going door to door to me was really important because I knew people knew of me, but I also realized that due to my age and then possibly due to some of my experiences that they may want to learn more about me and then also learn what my vision was. But going door to door also presented its own challenges because there were individuals who were interested in talking with me that would not because of COVID-19. Or, you know, I would go knock on their door and they'd say, you stand out in the yard, I'm going to stand up here and let's talk anywhere for, you know, 5 minutes, I think was around average, but some individuals we stood outside talking for upwards of an hour, and it was just whatever those individuals felt comfortable. I also had a brochure prepared and a lot of letter of intent and different platforms that I was able to share, and that's really how I got my message out. And a lot of individuals were extremely grateful that I went door to door, even in a pandemic, even if they refused to open the door and were, you know, grabbing my brochure through the crack and saying, I'll talk to you later or message you on Facebook. They did say that I think it was an element of gratefulness that even in a pandemic, you know, we were, as a candidate, going out and wanting to hear from them. So that was really enlightening. And you would be surprised the wisdom that is within your community when you go door to door. And that's one thing that I'm grateful for. There are different things that people are facing every single day that we don't know about sometimes in tribal administration. And having someone who's willing to listen to them, they felt more comfortable sharing all of their experiences, their concerns, their hopes, and their dreams. So if I continue campaigning, I think that's something I'd like to keep doing as well.
Wow, campaigning during a pandemic. That's dedication. So what are some of those bullet point issues that stick in your mind when it comes to things you wanted to address or change during your time on council?
Several of the things that I had identified back in 2019 was a need for us to diversify our economic development. Another thing is that I wanted to increase recreational areas for our families and our youth and, you know, just the community in general. Amazingly, we have been able to do those things even over this last year. It really speaks to the team that we have here at BMIC. You know, we not only have been contending with a pandemic, but we were also able to expand upon our business holdings during this pandemic. We have been able to secure funds to expand upon recreational areas for our community. Those were two really big things. Another being elder services. I wanted to expand upon what was being offered for our elders in the area. And, you know, even with that, we have been able to expand upon our Title VI program and begin offering more services to our elders. So again, that just speaks to our team here. It's just amazing that, you know, we're juggling all of this and we're seeing success and we're seeing progress even in the year of 2020. So those were some of my big points, and I'm really happy that we've had some progress with those.
My biggest point was the drug addiction and that kind of thing. And we were able to complete a tribal action plan and change our even personnel policies so that we weren't, we were taking care of people that wanted help. They could come to us and we would get them the help they needed. And another, for personal reasons, was senior housing. And because, you know, I work in a casino, so I don't know exactly how to go about getting senior housing. I know a lady that does with Gail. So working with Gail and, you know, kind of telling her what we wanted. People shouldn't have to go away to you know, like long-term care facilities, they should still be able to live at home. And so those are really important to me. And that's where I stand on that. Thank
Well,
you.
can I just add to that? During your time, we were able to secure a grant from HUD, and we are starting build of eight senior homes on our community. So
That's
I'm
very
glad
good.
it's a priority.
Yep.
And that's because I know 2 ladies.
Although who you know.
Yeah. And I kind of piggyback on Rachel as far as, you know, one of my key goals was economic diversification. You can't put all of your eggs in one basket, and we have worked on that. But also, I am big on taking care of what you already have. And for years, we let our facilities go. We just didn't put money into them. And Brenda can attest to the fact that if you don't keep something up, it's going to cost you more money in the long run. And so, you know, we've been very adamant about taking care of what we already have. And I think we're achieving that. Things are looking up. And then also to housing. That's always a forefront of what I am interested in. And because we had Rachel's previous hat before her current position was a tremendous grant writer, didn't want her to leave that position, but between that, you know, and the board, which previous to this, Brenda, our executive council is also our housing board. And, you know, we kind of expressed a dream of this is what we would like to see. And now we have the senior housing coming into play. We also have, it's not a total written partnership yet, but we did do a letter of intent with an organization here in the area, Superior Health Support Systems, who is instrumental in quite a few assisted living facilities over here. They know what they're doing, they know how to build them, and we want an assisted living facility here on the reservation for our tribal members. And so, and we're moving forward with that. We've got a multi-phase project. First is our senior houses. Too many of our tribal elders, we look at, they're in their 80s and 90s. They have a home, but they can't keep them up. And then we have families who need homes and there's not anything out here. So we wanted some small homes that would be maintained for our tribal elders. And luckily we had a great grant writer and a great board to allow this to happen. And, you know, they broke ground last fall. Unfortunately, the pandemic has caused things to go a little slower than what we planned, but by this fall we will have 2 completely built homes, and the following summer we'll have 6 more. So I think we're doing pretty good.
Very good.
Well, I've only had my position for 5 days, so I can't speak to a lot of achievements yet, but definitely there's a lot of ideas, which includes keeping the work that our current executive council, as they've described, going, making sure that it's followed through and completed, especially after the year of 2020. There was a lot of holdups and pauses and just general timelines that were stopped because of the pandemic. COVID-19 remains at the forefront. Our community is experiencing a little bit of an outbreak right now, and it is the goal of this council to make sure that our tribal citizens, employees, and community members are taken care of first. We don't want them to have to worry about their financials or their jobs, but rather their health, and not only their health individually, but also the health of the public. So we're trying to stop that outbreak right now. But there's a lot of other ideas moving into the future that I would like to focus on. One of those is cultural revitalization and language. Before I made the decision to run for council, I actually had an elder who came up to me, and there was a language speaker that has passed away recently this spring, and she was one of the core teachers that was providing those language teachings to a lot of our tribal members. And we have our own language professor here at Bay Mills Community College, and she had kind of said, if our people don't learn our language, she said, there's going to be a time in the future where I have no one to speak to. And that really, even saying that now gives me goosebumps, and really instilling that sense of pride in our people, of who we are and our history and all of the wonderful things that we're able to achieve because of our tribal sovereignty is something that I want to be able to focus on in the future. And of course, there's tons of other projects, which includes more economic expansion, more land and housing expansion. Bay Mills Indian Community is actually out of land. We abut the Hiawatha National Forest, and we have all of the land forward from that national forest up to the lake shore. So there's no more houses, there's no more land to build houses for our tribal members. And there's actually a lot of them who would want to live on reservation and be a part of their community and support one another, but there's nowhere for them to move home. So focusing on that, land acquisition, building more houses, allowing us to strengthen ourselves as a community. We've really been able to see as well during the COVID-19 pandemic, the strength of our financial resources, and knowing the limitations that are in place now, being able to grow that in the future. I think one thing COVID taught all of us is we can't predict the future. So being able to be prepared for anything that's thrown at us and create that sense of stability is something I'd like to focus on.
Very good. So this next question, Whitney, you'll have to answer it a little differently because it's asked. Well, I'll pose the question first. The question is, for those, how is being on tribal council different than you thought it would be? How is it different, I guess, is the question. So Whitney could answer, what are you expecting it to be like being on council?
For me, I did not think that we would be dealing with a global pandemic.
You didn't?
No, my glass ball did not show a pandemic. I know that previous councils, there's a lot of work that's entailed with being in an elected board. And this does not, lessen any of the work that any of the previous councils have done, but this last year has been crazy. I mean, I know all of us, we have had many sleepless nights, during this summer when I was in that grant writer position. A big focus that I had done was procuring any of the funds from the COVID acts and making sure that we were, in line to get whatever kind of funding we could get, the CRF funds, so my normal gig was, 60 to 80 hours a week during the summer. That was just my normal gig, but then you put on my council member hat, and there was a lot of things, there was no guidance in how to address and navigate a pandemic of this magnitude, and to make sure that we're protecting our community, protecting our elders, protecting, we have to look at our financial interests. We have to try to protect that for the long term, so there was a lot of juggling and like I said, a lot of sleepless nights. I was not expecting that. I knew that there would be a lot of hard decisions aside from COVID, but I didn't expect it to be so all-consuming, and I think that we've done an amazing job. Overall, our community, we weren't impacted as hard as a lot of other communities were. We're seeing some light with our business holdings, and I would sacrifice all of that again 100 times over for my community, because I've said it before, I really think that it was a blessing with the team that we had in place when COVID came around. We were all hands on deck, and every one of us gave 110% to make it so that we would all make it through this. So yeah, it's not what I expected it to be.
My first 2 years was pretty much how I expected it. It was a lot easier than this last year. And Rachel's absolutely right about the pandemic. we are very fortunate how we've handled it, but we took major drastic steps when COVID first arrived in the state of Michigan. We shut everything down. And we knew that would impact a lot of people, but it also, I'm gonna say it saved a lot of people too. We are also blessed with an amazing medical team here. They work tirelessly. Like, they make our jobs easy. I know I said many times in the past year that I don't need sleep. So I do. I need a nap. but it, you know, it's been so much easier because of the team of people that work with us. That's it, Gail.
That's it. And all I can say is ditto what Rachel said. I mean, it is nothing like I expected. And it's nothing like I expected because of the pandemic. We still had to carry on all of our regular duties, do all of our regular stuff, and still look out for our community and make those tough decisions that affected a lot of people financially. But you had to look out for the community as a whole, and that's what we did. And if it wasn't for the team we had, we probably wouldn't have made it through. And I have to say, you know, Whitney's going to do a terrific job, but she has some big shoes to fill because Brian was just a tremendous leader. And I don't know that I would have run for council had he not been, you know, there where he was. He, with Brenda, with the previous council, did a great job in the previous 2 years. So the regular stuff, yeah, it's kind of what I expected, but I didn't expect all this other pandemic stuff. And it's made life very interesting. And yes, we're all going to need a really long nap when this is all done.
So as a first timer to council, one of the things that I'm expecting that I know will happen is what these ladies have all touched on, is really the teamwork and the collaboration that have been set up, not only between council, but also all of our other teams, whether that be our health center, our enterprise, our governmental. As we worked through the pandemic together, one of the really humbling yet strengthening things you learned was that you can't do it all on your own. You really can't. When you don't have an answer, you have to reach out to someone else. And when you can't do something or someone else has to do something, you have to learn to collaborate together and really hold hands in order to cross the finish line. And I think that's something that we all did as we were dealing with the pandemic. In my prior position as tribal attorney, there were things that I was able to do, but there was a lot that I was not. And if we were not communicating, being transparent, being open with one another, asking for help, asking for assistance in all of the things that we were dealing with, I don't think we would have been as successful in how we've handled the pandemic thus far. And really setting up that teamwork and that collaboration came from council, and it trickled through the rest of tribal government. We had an end goal, which was to protect our community, our elders, and our children. And keeping that end goal in sight, everyone was able to work together and walk towards that end goal in order to support one another in achieving that. And having leadership that wants to work with others and listen to others and hear their feedback and correct their mistakes if they're being made creates a more collaborative environment for us to problem solve together. And that's something that I plan to continue doing, and I know these ladies do, but they really led the way in establishing that. We actually had an incident with our health center team. Originally, when we started up our vaccination program, we had a sign-up list, and we would prioritize those individuals based on compromised immune system, their age, or their priority as an essential employee. And we were going down the list and calling individuals for that vaccination. But then our health center reached out to us and said, this is not working. People are not showing up to their appointments. We're calling people 10, 20 times to try and get them to come get the vaccine. People ended up on the list that don't want the vaccine anymore. And they reached out to the executive council to say this just isn't working, and it was a wonderful idea, but now we need to fix it. And it was due to their feedback that we were able to set up a call system for people to call and make their appointments. And we would just set, the designated group that was supposed to receive those vaccines. So it's through that type of collaboration that now our Bay Mills Health Center has a really successful vaccination program. At least within the tribal community, we have high rates of vaccination, and we've been able to set up collaborative partnerships across Chippewa County in supporting vaccinating the general public. So that's just one example of the awesome teamwork that everyone's been involved in.
I feel like these quarantine stories need to be part of StoryCorps for NPR. So who would you say are some of your mentors?
Two individuals come to mind, one that's no longer with us and one that is with us still. My mom, she has always, she's really always spoken up and stuck up for the little guy. And that's something I've always taken to heart, that you need to look out for those that don't have a voice, those that need a voice. She's always played a huge part in my life. She was the first one to be raising her hands at any GTC and keeping our council in line. And I was sitting there right next to her, even when I was just young. So there's my mom. And quite frankly, Brian. I think Brian, his leadership, it's something to be in awe of, over this last year, and watching him and the way that he addresses any kind of, the pandemic, the way that he addressed the pandemic. And it was, okay, this is what's going on. And okay, what do you think? And the way that he could see everything out here and then bring it all right in, and the angles that he would see a problem or a solution, and the way he interacted with people, and he was an amazing leader. And Whitney, yes, I know you're going to do amazing, and you do have huge shoes to fill, because he really got us through this pandemic this last year. And I think even prior to that, before I was elected and I was the grant writer, it was just, he's someone to learn a lot from. So yeah, my mom and Brian, those are some two big mentors in my life.
So I have a couple too, but mine was my grandmother. She spent her entire adult life working for Bay Mills, running the senior programs. And she liked to keep people in check. If she seen something that wasn't quite fair to everyone, she was very vocal about it, taught me how to be vocal about it. And I carry a lot of that with me. My other mentor was Mark Solberg, Gail's brother, as a matter of fact. He was my supervisor for many years. And Mark taught me how to be kind to people, even when they're yelling at you and completely disagreeing with what you have to say. He taught me how to smile through it and continue on and to do the work. So I will always be grateful for that. Otherwise, I'd be very, very opinionated, and probably not many people would like me.
I don't believe it.
Gotta unmute myself. Mine was also my grandmother. One of them, she was a whopping 4'8" tall, had 14, well, she had 17 children, but 14 of them grew up to be adults. Lived in a tiny little house that when I was a little kid did not even have running water. I mean, it was great to go to grandma's house, but you had to use the outhouse, and I wasn't really used to that. And this is the early 60s, but that she had the ability to get things done. You know, she raised these kids. My grandfather passed away when I was very young, so she did it. A lot of those kids were grown up by then, but you know, she did a lot on her own. Just a very, very ambitious woman, and she raised, of the kids that were there, 7 boys and 7 girls, my mom being one of them, and all of the daughters, you know, they made a life for themselves, a good life. They all had great lives. My mom's the only one left now out of all of them, but and then the second one is Candy Tyranny, who is our tribal attorney, and I have known her forever. And while she is not a tribal member, she has done more to fight for this tribe than anybody that I know of, and she just inspires me every day.
So one of my mentors, which is really an interesting choice for a mentor, I think, because I've never met him, is my grandfather, Big Abe LeBlanc. So he actually passed away when my mom was 17, and he was just really instrumental in some of the things that he did for Bay Mills, which includes fighting for their tribal treaty rights. He was a tribal fisherman, and he was very involved in politics. The way he continues to inspire me in my work has been carried on through his legacy. So there are other individuals who come up to me, or the stories that I've heard about my grandpa, or the things that I'm reminded of because of him, that I carry with me in my decision-making process. So although he's no longer around, you know, to say, don't do this, or, you know, do this instead. And he was a little bit of a hothead, you know, so he might have yelled at more people than I do. I think it was his core values that continue to stay with me, and that support me, especially not only in the work as I did as a tribal attorney, but right now Bay Mills Indian community is also renegotiating the consent decree, which governs fishing regulations for the Great Lakes. And his presence in the back of my mind continues to remind me that we're not just talking about treaty rights, or we're not just talking about fish, or we're not just talking about water. We're also talking about people, because there are people within our community that rely upon this resource, not only commercially in order to provide for their jobs, but also culturally and spiritually. It all ties into our relationship with the land and who we are as a people. So he's a very interesting mentor, and kind of a presence, I feel, that looms behind me, you know, when we're discussing certain topics, and I always keep him in mind, and what he fought for. Another one, they've already been mentioned here, is also Brian Newland, our former president, as well as Candy Tyranny. Coming in as tribal attorney and working for Bay Mills, they were also attorneys that had many more years of practice than I did. So not only did they mentor me as an attorney, they also gave advice in terms of negotiations and other leadership forums. And what's always interesting is being able to have people with that breadth of experience on the state, tribal, and federal level within that government, is they think of things differently. So where you may have an initial reaction to something, and you're thinking of it from your perspective as a tribal citizen or tribal employee, or even just as a tribal government, they were able to say, well, this is how the state of Michigan is thinking of this problem, or this is how the United States and the federal government is thinking of this problem. And being able to pull in those different perspectives, I think, helps you problem solve a lot easier. And Brian especially, I still tease him for this, was really known for his dad advice, is what I call it. So he'd sit you down and, you know, say, well, this is how I would lecture my kids in this situation, so this is how I'm going to lecture the state of Michigan. And that's something that I still think of as well. So they've all been extremely instrumental in my short time working for Bay Mills.
So beyond being the SEEK interim director here at Northern Michigan University, I also teach Indigenous Studies with the Center for Native American Studies. And so I'm super excited for this next question. How has culture played a role in your life?
With me, again, I was not raised on reservation. I was not raised in my community. I did have, various teachings at a young age. I was not immersed in our culture for many years. And in fact, I think, I kind of lost my way a bit there. And when we came back to the community, culture became more readily available, like the teachings and the knowledge, and others around me that are practicing the same. And it was like coming home. I mean, quite literally, it was coming home, but it was coming home to not only my community and my reservation and my family, it was coming home to my culture and learning more and getting that connection, not only with the connection that you feel with your family and your community, your ancestors, I'm learning still. I am a student, and I still learn new things all the time. Whitney, she's quite a few years younger than me, and she teaches me things that I never knew, and I'm glad I now know. So it's ever evolving, but again, it's home, and it provides that stability and that base and that connection. So that's how culture has played in for me.
So you cannot understand the culture even growing up on the reservation. I was raised by a very Catholic family, and I remember the first person that taught me anything was my non-native grandfather, who was actually at a funeral, a traditional funeral, and he was the one explaining everything to me. And I thought that was very strange. And also, when I look back at it, I find it very remarkable that he tried to hang on to it for us. Since that time, when I had my oldest son, I realized how important knowing who we were really is and who we are. So each of my children have taken the language classes. My son drummed for a great many years. He probably still would if he's a wildland firefighter now, so he's pretty busy. And my daughter actually took language classes. I thought it was for 6 years. She reminded me that no, I started in kindergarten. And she speaks it actually very well. She says she's not fluent, but she was able to give the prayer at her high school graduation. She can converse a lot. And when I heard her give the prayer, like, I cried because it was like coming home. There was something about that was just remarkable. So that's learning our culture has been part of my life as an adult. And I don't think you can ever stop. Gail's muted.
And as Rachel had said too, I did not grow up around here, moved all over the place, and really didn't have the exposure to our culture until I actually came out here and started to work. And in that, I started, taking classes at the community college here, different things like that. My family as a whole never really immersed themselves into the culture. So everything that I've gleaned, everything that I've learned have been from my coworkers and out here. Right now, I don't live on the reservation, but myself and my children, most of us work out here, and it's a constant learning, and I love learning something new and holding on to it. And the one thing that I don't know and I want to learn is the language. My daughter and I, last fall, we're going to sign up, for the first language class. And then, of course, COVID hit and she didn't want to do it. And I thought that would be the perfect time because we're stuck inside all the time. We can talk, but we didn't do it. But I have goals to continually learn and make sure that my children and my grandchildren learn about, you know, the culture. My oldest two children are, I am Bay Mills, their father is Sioux tribe, so they've got it coming from both angles. And I think I think their father's family is a little bit more traditional than mine ever was. So I think they have a little bit more than my younger two, but it's just something I'm soaking up and learning every day.
Culture in my life has been pretty interesting in that my mom is a devout Catholic, but also because of her upbringing was very ingrained in our traditional and cultural ways. So one of the things I remember very distinctly is if I was younger and had a bad dream, you know, she would come into my room and she would smudge the whole room. She would smudge me, she would smudge my dream catcher, and then she'd be like, all right, now say 10 Hail Marys. And it wasn't until that I got a lot older that I was able to really understand the things that we were doing every day were part of our culture. I just thought that was how we were raised or how we grew up. So when my uncles would bring me hunting and were placing tobacco down for the deer, that was just something that we did. It was a way to give thanks for that animal and give thanks for the harvest that we were about to have. It's funny, like later on, we always put it out before the hunt, and then my uncle only started putting it out if he got a kill, because he felt like he was being snubbed by, you know, the spirits if he wasn't getting anything that hunt. But you know, growing up having a feast plate, you know, if the fishermen went out and they caught fish, you know, we would make that sacrifice. And it was just things I grew up doing without really knowing why. It wasn't until I got into college and that I started to unpack a little bit more of the intergenerational trauma that my family has suffered through, which includes substance abuse and, you know, mental illness, that I realized that culture was an avenue for us to heal that. You know, why did these traumas exist? What occurred in our history that was perpetuating these different illnesses and violences that my family was suffering from, that I really started to see culture as a way to provide that healing and bring a sense of self and a sense of whole back to my family. And it was really after that we started implementing it more so that we could really understand who we were as a people, and then also understand who we wanted to be in the future, including who we wanted, because I'm younger, I don't have any kids, you know, who I wanted any future children to look like. And that's not only for me as an individual, but across my family. And, you know, as one of my priorities as tribal chairperson, I would hope to instill a similar journey for our community as well. There's so much that we think is normal because of those intergenerational traumas that is not, that how do we provide in return to who we should be as a people. So that's one of the really big things that culture plays for me, and it still continues to be an everyday normal occurrence. Sometimes on a Zoom meeting, you know, depending on the topic, I'll, you know, smudge some of the viewers on that way, especially if we're talking about treaty rights or anything related or sensitive to our tribal communities. So that about sums it up for me.
Sums it up pretty well. All right, so now we go to the future. And Leora had asked about some bullet point issues that you guys might have thought about coming into council, but this, I want to put more of a positive spin on this one. Your team is built and it's time to get to work. What do you hope to accomplish during this term?
COVID aside, I mean, we're going to be addressing that for the foreseeable future, but COVID aside, we do have some ongoing projects that have kind of been stalled because of COVID, supplies and whatnot. I really would like to see all of those come to fruition and completion. We had mentioned that the elder housing build. We also received a grant from HUD, the ICDBG, to build a new Boys and Girls Club for our community. Club is a huge program for everybody here, our youth. You know, it's an amazing program for our youth. And the community in general. Club has done so much over this last year to help us all survive this last year. That project, we have a grant that we received to do to redo some of the Ball Diamond, which is one of our recreational areas. We started a playground build. I'd like to get more. I want to expand on that more. You know, Gail and Brenda had mentioned the assisted living facility. I want to get us some money for that and get that going. A lot of it's construction related, but man, have we ever needed it over the last decade even. You know, that's one thing that we really have been lacking is in our facilities and our recreation. We received another grant to develop a nature trail of sorts over at Spectacle Lake. Just all of these projects, I can't wait to really have them done and have the community, you know, able to use them and benefit from them. So that's kind of my priorities right now and what I really want to see happen. But again, COVID kind of puts a damper on things with, I'm sure you're aware, the supply chain and whatnot. So that's kind of where I'm seeing things go.
I am in complete agreement with Rachel on that one. We have so many things going on right now, and not just on that part, but in our businesses too, expanding, renovating. There's just an endless list. But as things get ticked off every day, it's getting it more and more exciting. So I can't wait.
Ditto. No, I want to throw out there too, one project that's been in the works for, I would say at least the last 10 years. As Whitney had said, you know, we're out of land, but prior to being out of land, we did purchase a large parcel of land up on top of Plantation Hill that we have here. And it's been a very long, tedious project to get infrastructure up there. And we're at the point now where we have water up there, we have sewer up there, electric is going up there, and we have, what is it, Rachel, like 90 to 100 lots up there, 1 acre parcels that we're going to be able to allow tribal members eventually, don't let them rush right now because there's still stuff going on, but to be able to put homes up there. And as Whitney said, housing is just a huge issue here. We've been very blessed. Bay Mills was the very first tribe in the nation to do the first conventional mortgage on tribal trust land back in, I think I started here in 1999. So I want to say right around then. We have partnerships with local financial institutions, USDA, and we do conventional mortgages on tribal trust land all the time. And so we're looking at doing that for the housing developments up on top of the hill. That's about the only way because, you know, HUD funding and the old HUD houses have gone by the wayside. But we've got partners who want to do a housing fair. We've got lenders that want to come in. We actually have Fannie Mae that wants to come in here for the housing fair. So that's the one key thing that in the next, we have till November before it's elections again. So I don't think we'll get it all done between now and November, but whether I'm sitting on council or just part of the housing authority, that's one key thing I want to make sure we get done. So.
In the short term, like Gail just said, the next 7 months that we have, in addition to all of the projects that everyone's has been focusing and talking about, I really think there's also a sense of healing that needs to happen within our community in terms of, you know, when we do talk about those traumas that exist or, you know, people being cooped up, not being able to be with one another, the way we gather and interact as a people has been fundamentally changed because of the pandemic. And I know that moving forward, it will continue to be changed in how we interact and communicate as a people. So really focusing on doing that in a right way and reinstilling, you know, that sense of healing that everyone needs as this starts to come to a little bit of a closure, you know, hopefully in the next couple of months. I think it's going to be a really big priority. There have been people who have been cooped up in their homes and haven't seen anyone in over a year. And how are you reaching out to those individuals, and how are you celebrating, I think, as a tribe, what you've been able to survive, essentially. Even now when there are little events that are going on, it's super apprehensive, and there's almost a negative connotation associated with those gatherings, because even if everyone is in masks, you know, people are still scared, they're still anxious, or if you have those few outlier people who may not be complying with that, it ruins the whole mood for everyone. So really focusing on that healing, not only in how we interact, but financially, economically, and in our work environments as well, I think is going to be really important. And then, of course, looking well into the future, there's a lot of other projects that we want to accomplish. And one of the things that we've been able to achieve throughout the pandemic, and some of the money that's been coming from the federal government, is almost this revitalization of the projects that we've had here within Bay Mills. So as Rachel, Gail, and Brenda have said, there's a lot that we've had to ignore as a tribal government. And now we're able to re-seize that narrative and get the things we want, the things that we've all been dreaming about, and all the things that we wanted to accomplish done. And that is going to be so huge, not only for us as an administration or for our finances, but also for our people. They're going to have playgrounds to play at. They're going to have houses to live in. They're going to have better job opportunities. And when you're able to provide them that, it just creates a better, a better way of living for them as well. And when your people are supported and happy and well off and able to take care of their own, that begins to trickle down into those other generations. When you're able to support higher education for your youth, that continues to trickle down. You know, I'm the first generation college and then as well Juris Doctor student in my family. But when you're able to support your youth or support your families in achieving that, you are almost setting up generational wealth well into the future for your families as well. So if we can provide that as a base for everyone, I know that 10, 15 years down the road, it's going to be an entirely different Bay Mills, and we're finally able to do that.
I love it. All right, so this interview did take a little longer than I thought it would, but we have reached the final question. And before we get to that question, because we're probably ended after that round of answers, I'd like to say Chimigwech to each and every one of you for being here. Leora, thanks for being here. And if you have any last words for them, you can give the last words, and then you can pose the last question.
Sure. Miigwech, again, Mitch, just for having us all on today. This is really special to be able to get together like this. So is there anything else that folks want to put out there, any kind of advice or anything personal that goes into your work?
I just want to stress to, you know, the sky's the limit. Honestly, you know, when I was younger, I had some hiccups, you know, I struggled with my own personal demons, and you know, it took me over a decade to earn my undergraduate degree. You know, we were scraping along, barely making it. And, you know, the sky's the limit. You can, whatever you put your mind to, you can achieve that. And you know what? It doesn't matter if you're 40 and earning your, you know, your degree or your high school diploma. If that's what you want to do, dang it, go do it, because we get one life. We get one life, and if it takes half your life to do something, well, dang it, you did it. So I can't stress that enough. I've seen so many young people that are just kind of, you know, well, I'm getting older, I shouldn't be going to school. I mean, I can remember some of my coworkers at my previous job. I had applied for the MPA program and they were teasing me. You're too old to get a degree. And I'm like, bull, you're never too old to learn. You're never too old to, you know, better yourself. And they're really eating their words nowadays. But
Yeah.
I can't stress it enough. Go after what you want to go after.
The only thing I want to add is I think Bay Mills is really successful. We've done many firsts, taken the bull by the horns, and it's all because of teamwork. You know, we've got a great council, but the council is only good as all of the other teams and members behind you. And I mean, our management at the casinos is great. Our health center is just phenomenal. You know, the team I have here at the Housing Authority is great. I mean, we've got so many entities, and I know I'm leaving some of them off of there, but we all work well together. And that's the key to any successful organization, is there's no one person who can do everything. Some people might want to take credit sometimes, but that's just, we all know different, you know. We've got a great team here, and everybody works so well together. So
You can tell.
Miigwech. Brenda?
Okay. Yeah, thanks. I think I just want to leave this with one message, and that's for anybody listening, is that nobody is alone in any of this, whether it's this pandemic, drug addiction, suicide. Keep reaching out. Reach out to anyone until someone listens to you, and don't accept no for an answer. So that's it.
I want to focus my message on our tribal youth that might be listening, no matter how young you are. You guys are our future. You're the next leaders, you're the next managers, you're the next directors. And I really do encourage you to get involved sooner rather than later. And even now, even if you're 10 years old or 12 or 15 or 18, reach out to your community leaders, have an opinion. You guys know what's going on within the community, and you know how we can best support you so that you can have the most fulfilling and successful life that you want. I think one of the great things that Bay Mills has been able to demonstrate by having an all-female council is that there is no limitation in what you can do and what you can achieve. So please don't give up on yourselves, don't give up on your communities, don't give up on your leaders, because you're next, and you're our future, and you're the one that will carry forward our communities for the next 7 generations. So keep on keeping on.